Okay, good morning everyone. Today we will be learning about how to write a formal letter. Before we start, I want you all to watch this video that I prepared. I found inspiration to create this method for everyone to use. It's a very cute video from when I was a teenager. Maybe you guys know this. Maybe you guys know this series as well. It's Steven.
From the soon-to-be former communication hub. How are y'all doing tonight? Great. Giant woman! Oh my god! Was I worth the wait? What am I saying? Of course I was! Wow, you're so articulated. Look, you're the sweetest little chump. I could literally squish you right now in the milky heart. Oh! Sorry, I'm just so excited to be here. You see, I haven't exactly been myself lately. You should jump. And jump is not the only thing You gonna smash stuff with your warhammer? Smash is the word one could use to describe what someone else might do. Now, the proper words used to describe yours truly are specific, intelligent, accurate, elegant, controlled, certain, crisp, and But yes, occasionally I am known to smash. Now, just remember, if you ever have need of those love things on buildings, let Pro and Con it know. I'll be there in a flash. Literally.
So, do you guys? I showed you the video. So, who was the big woman in the video? If you guys are paying attention, what was the name of the big woman in the video? I hope. Okay, the name of that woman
Yeah.
is Sardonyx. The name of that woman is Sardonyx. And Sardonyx, as you can see, she is very formal, she's very articulate, and I think we can take we can learn something from her, and then incorporate it into our formal letter. So when you're writing a formal letter, you need to be specific, you need to be accurate, and of course you need to be elegant when you're writing it. The Sardonyx method is something I came up with, and it's very simple. I think I gave you all papers already. So on your paper, as you saw earlier, Sardonyx had a weapon, and that weapon is a type of hammer. And you can see it already. So in a hammer you have a handle. We won't be writing anything. We won't be writing an actual essay today. I'm only teaching you guys how about the method of writing the formal letter, and also how to remember the format of the formal letter, and finally the rules of the formal letter. And later we will refer to an actual formal letter. I have it right here. I have it right here to be shown for us to refer later and learn as we go. So, we saw earlier that Sardonyx had a hammer, and in that hammer, and on the paper that you have right now, I want you guys to draw that hammer. So we start with the handle itself, and then
Draw a hammer.
Draw a hammer. Oh well, it won't look exactly the way it did in the cartoon, but it is one way to remember. It is a method that I came up with when trying to remember the format. Oh shit! I am so sorry. When trying to remember what the formula looks like, because as far as I'm aware, one of the main reasons that students dislike formulas are because they don't remember what it actually looks like, where things go, and how to write it. Sorry.
Does it need to be big or just like small?
Right now we're drawing it, but on the actual paper itself, we're not going to actually draw the word hammer. It's just as a guide for us to know where everything goes. So on a hammer, you have the handle, you have the holder of the word hammer. Sorry, the holder, and also the hammer at the back of the hammer itself, right? To help you visualize an actual hammer, looks like this. Yeah. So an actual hammer looks like this. What we're trying to incorporate here is this part right here. We have the handle, the support, and the back of the hammer, and the bottom as well. We have another support and the hammer as well, and then another hammer. As we saw of Sardonic's weapon earlier, right? So how do we use this as a guide? How do we use this as a guide to remember what a formula looks like? We start with, if you guys remember, to write a formula, we first start with where that formula came from. Okay? For example, it came from us. We are the one who wrote it, right? So naturally, you would write down your address over here. Who wants to dox their address? Who wants to volunteer their address for the?
Yes.
I'm just kidding. For example, you would write the address over here, and on this line, we are going to write the date that we wrote this address, and that we wrote this letter. For example, we can write 11th November 2025. On the second part, we're going to write the address of the recipient of the formal letter. For example, first, when you're trying to write the address of the recipient of the letter, you must first write the position that the person is supposed to receive this letter's position. For example, if I'm writing it to Miss Flores, we are going to write lecturer of Uniraza. We're going to write here. But usually we won't write it directly to her, or maybe it's something you want to ask about to the office of the Uniraza. So you're going to write the office. Are you guys still following me?
Yes.
Yeah. So to recap, the first part is
Address.
Our address.
Our address.
And then the second part on the line.
Date.
Yeah, on the line between the support and the actual hammer itself, we're going to write the date that we wrote this letter.
Yes.
On the support itself, we're going to write the position of this person that is supposed to receive this letter, and the address. For example, we are at Uniraza, so let's say Uniraza.
Okay.
Now from here we can start writing the formal letter as well. So when you're writing a formal letter, it is already in the name, it's formal. Therefore, when it is formal, there are rules. There are rules you have to adhere to when we are trying to write a formal letter. Sorry. Okay. When you're starting a formal letter, you have to first address the I keep on saying address. when you're writing the formal letter, you have to first address the person receiving the letter. So there are a few ways we can do this. Let's say over here, let's say it's the starting of the formal letter. How would you obviously I think everyone here knows the way to start a letter is
Title.
no,
Greet.
dear.
Dear.
Yeah, greeting. Dear. If it's a man, Mr. If it's a woman, you write Mrs. So you say, Dear Mr. Brown, Dear Mrs. Brown, or Madam, or Sir. But if the gender of the recipient is unknown, then you can also write to whom it may concern.
Yes.
Yes. Are you guys writing notes? Be sure to write this down because it's going to be very useful for you in the future. Or perhaps you are writing to the institution itself. For example, you're writing to the Kementerian Ekonomi Negara. So let's say, in attention to and then the name of the organization. Are you guys still following me?
Yes, sir.
So if it's a man, if the recipient is a man, how do we start the letter?
Dear sir.
Dear sir, I give you
Dear
two here.
Mr. Brown.
Dear Mr. Or if it's a woman,
Mrs.
Mrs.
Madam.
Madam. If you don't know the gender, we're going to use,
To whom it may concern.
or if you want to address the institution instead of a singular person,
In attention to.
in attention to and then the name of the organization. So, on the letter, you would first start with addressing the person that is supposed to receive this letter. So, to whom it may concern. To whom it may concern. The next part is you're going to write the title of the letter. The theme of today is health. I forgot to mention that, but the theme of today is health. So, the theme of today is health. So let's think of a title. An example of a title. Let's say to address the rising dengue fever cases. Over here, on this line over here, the handle, we're going to write the title of the lesson. To address the title of the letter. To address the rising cases of so on. Am I clear? after addressing the person that is receiving this letter, you have to write about the title of the actual form letter itself. So how do we start a form letter? The first paragraph. What are we going to talk about? Actually, I actually skipped a few stuff. My bad. So, when you're writing a formal letter, there are rules. In a formal letter, formal writing, we cannot use contractions. Do you guys know what is a contraction? A contraction Contraction is when you shorten two words. For example, I'm, there. In a formal letter, you are not allowed to use I'm, there, this apostrophe. Instead you have to write the whole word itself. I'm is short for I am. There, they are. This one is easy to remember, right? You are not allowed to use contractions. A second rule of thumb is to not use phrasal verbs. What is a phrasal verb? What is a phrasal verb? A phrasal verb is when it's a verb plus an adverb. For example, go on. This is something we use every day, right? It's an everyday word usage. Carry out. What else? Look after. Talk about. See, this is the go is a verb. On is an adverb. Carry is a verb. Up is an adverb. So we are not allowed to use these, but instead we are supposed to be using the equivalent, the formal equivalent of each of these verbs. The formal equivalent of go on, who has an idea of what it might be. The formal equivalent means it's a singular word. Instead of these lengthy words, it becomes a single word. So go on, we say continue. We would like to go on with the event. Instead of using go on, you say we would like to continue with the event. You have to be more elegant. Just like paradox. You need to be mindful. You need to be demure. When you say carry out, does anyone have an idea of what it may be? Carry out, we use execute. These words are I know, these are very difficult to remember. Yes, unfortunately, you do need to understand this as well. It takes practice, but the more formal letters you write, the more used to these that you have. Who knows? You're going to use this in normal essay writing, and you're going to save yourselves the word count. Right? Look after. Any supervise. Talk about. We would like to talk about the next week. So how do we write this? Discuss. Yeah, there is a lot of phrasal verbs that we need to take note of. In the actual exam, you will need to think about each and every word that you write. You have to make sure that you are not using a phrasal verb, but instead using an equivalent. However, there are also some exceptions to this. I wouldn't say exceptions. There are additional notes that we need to take care of. We need to use formal words. Is what I'm trying to say. So, for example, ask. This isn't a phrasal verb, but it has a formal equivalent. Any ideas? So these normal words, although it is not really going to be a huge deal, but it is going to make your Latin look better. Because when you're writing, what is the use of a formal Latin? In what situation would you use a formal Latin? I would say this is actually more important than knowing how to write it. Where would you use a formal letter?
As a promotion. No,
Not
not promotion. Like withdrawal letter.
Yes, but before you withdraw, you would do a job application. So these are very important to know when you're trying to do a job application. A formal letter, you can think of it as a first impression to your future employer. The more formal your letter is, the more good, the better the impression of the employer is about you. So I'm going to give you two more words. Throughout this lesson, maybe you can try to think of words, need, and touch. I think I'll give you some exercises for the phrasal verbs as well. Call off. How to use this one? We would like to call off this event.
Stop.
What else? Turn down. Let's start small. We're going to discuss about this later inside out. Do you have an idea of what turn down may be?
Reject.
Yeah, exactly. It's reject. So there are a lot of these that we need to take note of. When you, like I said before, when you're writing a formal letter, you need to really think about every single word that you're writing. So now that we have that out of the way, the rules of thumb for writing a formal letter, these are it. So it is very important to remember these. When you're writing the very first paragraph of a formal letter, honestly, I feel like this is too small. Let's try to. Is the back of your paper still clear? Okay. So I'm going to make a whole new one, so it's easier for us to use. We've already gone through these two parts. To recap, what do we put here?
Address.
Our address.
Yeah, our address. Date.
What do we put here?
Title? No, not title,
Okay,
not
yeah.
title, like not title, not title, like the title, like people's title.
You're trying the person that you're going to address.
Yeah, that's
Remember when I said earlier that you may not know who you're trying to address? In that case, you can just skip this and go straight to the address of the recipient. After this, you're going to address the person. To recap, what do you call if it's a man?
Dear Mr.
Dear Mr. or Dear Sir. If it's a woman,
Mrs. Method.
if you don't know the gender,
To whom to whom it belongs.
it's so beautiful, isn't it? To whom
May
So beautiful.
answer.
Or if you're trying to address the institution itself, you're going to say, in attention to.
Organization.
In attention to university. So, a formal letter would usually be made up of three parts. The first paragraph, the introduction. The second paragraph, which is the body of the formal letter. The last paragraph, and the last paragraph, which you have to close. There are certain rules when you're trying to close a formal letter. And finally, at the very bottom, what do you do in the very bottom? Any guesses?
Yeah.
Signing off, exactly. And even signing off, there are rules. Did you know that? You cannot simply use sincerely, yours faithfully. There are rules to that as well. We're going to go through that later. So when you're the very first paragraph, when you're writing the very first paragraph, you must first talk about, in the very first line, you are going to have to talk about the reason you're writing the actual essay. Let's say, don't forget the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the gap,
Space.
the space. I'm writing to, okay. What are the, here we, in a normal circumstance, I would have said, I'm writing to ask about. But instead of using to ask about, what are we going to use? That is talk about. To ask about, we're going to use, I'm writing to ask about, to inquire about. I'm writing to inquire about subject. I'm writing to request. Oof, I just gave you guys an answer. I'm writing to request. So the very first paragraph is very important. You have to talk about the subject. About the subject of the formal letter. After the subject, you have to introduce yourself. Sorry, I'm a bit busy. Just give me a second. After talking about the subject of the formal letter, you have to introduce yourself. I, Shireen, from a student from Uni Razak, sorry, what was it? I think this is a good time to look at an example. Oh shoot.
This is them. Sorry.
You can see here, it started with they started their letter with their address, their date, the person that they're trying to address the letter to, the address of the recipient. Okay, the address of the recipient, addressing the recipient itself, dear sir, dear madam, who may be concerning attention to, yada yada yada, and the title of the letter. When you're writing the very first paragraph, you need to talk about, I am a resident of Pakistan and I am writing to complain about the disturbing issue of pets breeding near the rubbish chute. See, you can see here, they are immediately going to the point, specific. It's specific, it's straight to the point, and you don't mince your words. Unlike an email, you would ask about, I hope you are well. I am as right as rain. Another rule, actually, for formal writing is you cannot use any idioms. I slept, the student slept like a log because the student slept like a log in the last event, we don't write that. The student slept well, and because of that, we would like to thank you for the event. This is the very first paragraph, and the body itself, you can see that they are just talking about wherever I walk past the rubbish chute to get the nearby market, blah, 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 blah. Evidence, evidence, evidence. You're going to, because if this formula is trying to persuade the person reading to take some action about the pests near the rubbish chute. Evidence, 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 and more evidence. So, in the end of the formulator, the very final paragraph, there are also rules that we need to adhere to. The pre-ending statement. In the pre-ending statement, you're going to close the letter before. This is something that you write before the signature. In the pre-ending statement, there are also rules. You would say, I look forward. Okay. In the pre-ending statement, you are going to close the formal letter. You already presented all your evidence, you already introduced yourself, you already wrote the title, you already wrote the reason why you are writing the letter, you already wrote the evidence of why things need to change. Now here you're going to say goodbye to the person that is receiving this letter. In the pre-ending statement, you're going to start with, I look forward to. This is one way you can end it. To the verb of the. I look forward to hearing from you soon. I look forward to meeting you soon. Or you can say, I look forward to your reply. I look forward to seeing action about this issue. I look forward to meeting you next week. Sorry, I just repeated the last one. Or you could say, if it's a job application, I'm giving you tips of getting jobs. So, should you have any, this is going to be very, you're going to be very formal. I personally like this the most. Should you have Sorry, my writing is very bad. So,
We know.
yeah. So, bear with me. Should you have any inquiries, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. This down. You guys written this down. The pre-ending statement is also a very important part of a formal letter, because you don't want them to. You already give them so much stress in the body and in the start. So the least you could do at the end is be respectful and close it properly, and close the letter properly. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me, to contact me. Should you have any doubts, so I gave you three options. I look forward to verb in, as in like I look forward to meeting you, I look forward to hearing from you, or I look forward for your reply, I look forward for your action to this issue, or should you have any inquiries, please don't hesitate to contact me. This is the very final, this will be on the very last paragraph of your form letter. And in the end of the now we are going to talk about the signature. how the signature, how you would actually end your formal letter. The most common ways that we know is, any ideas? The most common ways to end the letter? Sincerely. Any more? Yours sincerely. Yours sincerely, yours faithfully. These two are the most common ways. And I don't really recommend trying to look for other ways other than these unless you really understand how to use them. Because when you're writing a formal letter, even at the ending, there are rules. So, if you don't know the person, you're going to use yours faithfully. For example, you're trying to write it to the CEO of Uniraza. Do you know the person personally? Then you're going to write yours faithfully. Or maybe you're writing to your teacher, which you know. You're writing to the lecturer in a formal letter, which you already know who they are and they know who you are. You write yours sincerely. So as you can see, there are many rules to the formal letter. So it's important that you practice. And it is difficult, but practice makes perfect. I think we can look at here. The letter is addressed to the officer in charge of the town hall. Officer in charge of the town hall. Oh, shoot. Who is writing this letter? We can see it's Chan Lily. It's Chan Lily. And Chan Lily, even from the very first paragraph, and even from the very start, we can know that Chan Lily doesn't know who this officer in charge is. How do we know that? Because they use sir and there's no name. If it was me, I would have said, if we don't know the person, what do we use? What would be a better choice? Here.
To
whom it may concern.
Yes.
The officer in charge, to whom it may concern, and the address of the person. And this one. The title. The very first paragraph, we see that they are talking about the complaint. And the complaint and the reason why they are writing the letter. And at the very end, we can see, in view of this terrible inconvenience to the past issues is causing, I urge the town to promptly employ measures to exterminate the pests. As we can see, it looks like what we discussed earlier. They are looking forward to some type of action. In the last two paragraphs, we see that they are talking about evidence encountered numerous cockroaches, and the second one is water from damaged pipes leaks from the issue. The third paragraph is talking about cracks within the walls, sharded surveyors, find a problem. We can see in the three paragraphs, it's talking about the evidence that they're trying to show to the person, the evidence that they're trying to show to the officer in charge of the town hall. And in the end, the way they close it is, in view of the terrible inconvenience the pest issues is causing, I urge the town council to promptly employ measures to exterminate the pests. Here we see that they are looking forward to some action, to some way that the town hall is going to solve the problem of the pests. They use yours faithfully because they don't know the person. Yours faithfully, and then finally the signature. So now we go back to the rules. I gave you guys exercises, right? So, any ideas of what this could be? Any ideas at all? So, when you're asking, I need this our club needs these funds for yada yada yada, you can say our club requires. Attached to this letter is yada yada yada, enclosed with this letter is my job application. When you say call off, any idea what it could be?
And install.
Not quite. You're close. It's around those. It's around that area as well. Because this is a phrasal verb, we're trying to shorten it. What is a synonym or an equivalent to this long word? We can say cancel. We would like to cancel the event in light of the forecast for the weather forecast. Next week, next week, I want you guys to look for more of these, and we are going to actually write the formal letter. That's all for today's lesson. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any question? Any question? Oh my, for a few minutes. Anyway. Any questions? No? You guys understand what the sardonyx method is?
I forgot to fill out what I want to ask. I think we don't fully understand yet.
But
We don't want to ask.
just ask the question, just ask the question. I'll try my best to answer you. Well, now the thing that we need to take note of, if nothing else, I want you guys to remember the rules of thumb when you're writing the formal letter. What contractions and phrasal verbs? No I'm, always I am. No there, always they are. No we're, we use we are, and so on and so forth. And no phrasal verbs. We have to practice on these. Yeah, and I think that's about it. The rules of thumb. Thank you so much for paying attention.
Thank you, sir.